somebody with a little bit more experience, somebody who will be able to lead, somebody who we have confidence in, somebody who we can rely on. And we collectively chose Lieutenant Barrow, Basiru Barrow. And we approached him and he agreed. And so the original 5 members of the plot to overthrow the Jawara government were Lieutenant Basiru Barrow, Lieutenant Alpha Kinte, Lieutenant Alaji Kante, Lieutenant Sana Sabali, and myself.
Do you recall how many months before July 22nd was this plan hatched?
I cannot recall exactly, but from the time we left Kudang, I am not sure whether it was April or March. It must have been after independence. Well, I could be wrong, but please go back to the records. I don't want to inadvertently mislead the Commission.
But this group of 5,
yes, sir.
The membership later changed. Could
Yes.
you tell us about that?
Well, we once met outside the camp in amongst some lime trees. There were some lime trees somewhere adjacent to Yundum camp, and we went there and...
Does it have a name?
No, I think there was an agricultural installation next door, and we crossed the fence and then we went, because we could not talk in the barracks, we had to find a way. But we were spotted by military intelligence and they reported the matter. So obviously, it's treason, it's treasonous. The stakes are very high, and so one after the other, they decided to withdraw.
Who withdrew?
If I can remember, it must have been, well, I cannot remember between Alaji Kante and Alaji Kinte, Alpha Kinte, who withdrew first, but I know they were perhaps the first 2 in succession to leave. Then there was 3 of us, Lieutenant Barrow, myself, and Sana Sabali. So we had no choice but to bring others on board. 3 of us, 3 officers cannot launch a coup like this. I suggested Yaya Jammeh, and the response that I got from Barrow was not a good one. Sana Sabali was a little bit tame.
Tell us about the response you got from Barrow. What did he say?
He told me, Ndoke nyimma fanlong.
What does that mean in English?
He does. He's well. What is the direct? Okay, direct translation is that he doesn't know himself, but we know what it means in English, that he's arrogant. Even though I tried to talk to him, he wouldn't buy it. But I had gone ahead and spoke to Jammeh anyway, despite Basiru Barrow telling me not to. So I had spoke to Jammeh, and he came on board. But the funny thing is, after telling me that Yaya Jammeh is arrogant, he told me that he's the type that will tell you that he can hold 1 LMG here, 1 LMG there, and then that's...
do the Rambo thingy.
Exactly, which as professional soldiers is rubbish. But funnily, he actually said that he can hold an LMG here and then take State House. He did tell me that.
So from that point on, you guys knew that he was prone to exaggeration. He was prone to saying things that would not cut the grain.
Yes, but you take some things with a pinch of salt or as a joke.
Or a bag of salt.
Well, a bag of salt is a little bit too harsh, you know, between friends and comrades. You know, you do have people that exaggerate all the time, but you don't take those comments too seriously. But the important thing was he came on board.
Why did you think Jammeh was a good choice, in spite of the protestations of your senior, Basiru Barrow?
Well, we needed additional officers. He had served in the Presidential Guard, and perhaps his inside knowledge would help in the planning, in drawing the plans.
Or was he just a ready-made candidate in view of the fact that he was always against the government?
Not at all. I can explain to you how I came to be acquainted with Jammeh, but it had nothing to do with politics. I had never discussed politics. In fact, at the time that I approached him because we had already built up a relationship and not because of his views.
All right, proceed. So now you've recruited Jammeh, so it's now four of
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir.
Basiru Barrow, Edward Singhateh, Sana Sabali, and Yaya Jammeh.
Yes, sir. Then, after Jammeh had come on board, Basiru Barrow decided to withdraw.
Why?
Well, like I said, it had leaked, and the tension was building. We were being watched by military intelligence, we knew that. All along, let me also shed light on this second part of it. There was a parallel process also being run. It is not only the recruitment of the officers.
What do you mean by a parallel process being run?
Yes, sir, that is what I'm trying to explain. 4 or 5 officers alone cannot take over a government without the buy-in of the soldiers. And so I used my position as platoon commander in Alpha Company, and I was the only platoon commander at the time, so I was basically taking care of all of the 3 platoons. Under Major Momodu Baji, I was the subaltern, I was a junior officer, so I would act as platoon commander, even though according to the military hierarchy, if at all the platoon commander is not there, then the platoon sergeant will stand in for the platoon commander. And I was platoon commander for 1st platoon. There was the senior sergeant acting for 2nd platoon, and so on and so forth for the 3rd platoon. But still, as the officer, I was the one who was giving guidance. And I had developed a relationship with my troops. This relationship was built with confidence. I would make sure that I look after the welfare of my soldiers. I would counsel them. I would be concerned about their welfare. And for example, you have a good soldier who, for some reason, doesn't turn up for duty. Now, rather than charge him with an offense for being absent from place of duty, I will counsel him and find out what is happening at home.
Essentially, you developed a relationship
Yes,
with your troops,
yes.
and they trusted you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And proceed from there.
So what I did was I slowly got buy-in of a few, and then extended it and extended it and extended it until generally I got the buy-in of Alpha Company. And I was the only officer amongst us that was in command of soldiers at the time. Sana Sabali was in charge of support weapons. He had no weapons. He had no troops. He had no office. He was a refugee in the camp. He was just roaming around until he was given a small place somewhere. So I used that connection with my connection with the troops to get them on board. And that is why I said there was a parallel process. So whilst the officers were preparing themselves, I was preparing the troops at the same time. Even though when Sana Sabali was a duty officer, he would talk to the soldiers on duty at the time, but you just cannot stand in front of a parade and tell them, look, we are going to overthrow a government, who is in? No, you cannot do that. I mean, there's a way that you have to slowly inculcate your thinking into the troops' thinking and then get their buy-in.
So apart from getting Alpha Company soldiers to support your cause, did you get any other officers?
Officers or soldiers?
Did you get additional officers?
Additional officers, after Basiru withdrew, there was 3 of us again. Myself, Sana Sabali, and now Lieutenant Jammeh. And we agreed that, look, really, we cannot launch a coup with just the 3 of us. We need officers to be in command of the troops, to lead them into battle if need be. So we decided at that time to recruit Sadi Buhaidra. But excuse me, let me come back. I've forgotten one point when you talk about officers. Yankuba Toure was posted to Farafenye, but intermittently he would come down to Banjul to collect the pay for soldiers who were receiving their salaries over the pay table. And this was even before Yaya Jammeh came in. When he passed by Yundum once, and I called him aside and I spoke to him. And I told him that this is what is happening. And I know for a fact that whatever we launch from Banjul, well, before I went into that, I got his buy-in once he agreed to be part of it. I told him that, look, his role would be not only to bring soldiers on board from Farafenye, but if he could not do that, was because I know for a fact that if we launch from Banjul, there would be a counter-attack from Farafenye, that he should make sure that he stalls or stops that attack. And that is how Yankuba Toure came on board.
So he was an original member of the coup?
The original 5, like I said, but he was brought on board subsequently, but that was his only role. And because he was not at Yundum or in the combos at the time, he did not play an active role in the takeover of the July 22nd itself. In fact, he came down to Banjul a couple of days later because we had stopped the ferries from crossing. They could not cross.
But he is one of those who originally agreed
to
participating in the coup.
Yes, he was.
So now you have 4 of you.
Yes.
Proceed, please.
So we decided that, well, we need somebody else on board, at least one person. And we looked at the possibility of bringing Sadi Buhaidra on board. But we agreed that we would not give him the full details of the plan. What we would do was tell him that this is going to happen if we are arrested or something happens, because it had leaked and, excuse me, it had leaked, and there's a possibility that before the day itself we would have been detained. Then he should lead the troops to come and free us, and we continue the takeover from there. So that was Sadi Buhaidra's role. Now, with regards to other officers, I cannot recall whether it was myself and Sana or myself and Yaya Jammeh. We decided to sound the opinion of Major Abdullahi Conte. Major Ablai Conte is a good senior officer, professional. He knows his stuff, tactically minded. He's a good professional all-round officer. So we just approached him and spoke to him around the football field in Yundum when we were overlooking a parade. And we didn't tell him exactly what was happening, but we asked him of his opinion about what was prevailing in the country, whether anything better could be done, and what was the possibility of the military stepping in. He agreed that, first of all, that truly the government was not doing well, that they could do much better, that the Gambian people had been left behind, and something should be done. But with regards to a military takeover, he said that that would not work. I think he said in Wolof, "Lol du Musa dox fi." So once he said that, we backed off because we knew that it's a no-go area. We cannot proceed and then tell him exactly what we were doing.
How about Durcham?
Oh, okay. Excuse me. Yes, Ndurcham was briefly brought on board, and perhaps that's why, because there's so many activities took place. So if I skip something, it's not because I'm trying to leave it out. It's because I'm trying to cram as many details in as short as possible time. Yes, Nducham was brought on board by Jammeh, I believe. Jammeh was the one who recommended Nducham. And briefly he came on board, he attended 1 or 2 meetings, and he was always panicking. I'll give you an example. When we had a meeting in Jammeh's house, I think first of all, he came very improperly dressed, and then his T-shirt was inside out. When he was going out, he had his slippers on the wrong feet. He was just not himself. Well, with all due respect, to him, but put it this way: planning a coup is not an easy thing. Not everybody can withstand the pressure and the scrutiny. Because of the implications. So
therefore, among all those planners, it was yourself, Yaya Jammeh,
yes, sir,
and Sana Sabali, at least, who were able to really deal with the pressure, who did not buckle under all that pressure.
Well, I would not say that. I would not want you to try to separate the wheat from the chaff in that manner. It was our idea from inception.
We know that, Mr. Singhateh, yes, but sir, you just told us, yes, that this is pressure that is difficult to withstand. Not everybody could withstand it. Your senior officers, like Ndur Cham, for instance, behave irrationally during the planning period. What I want to establish is that the 3 of you at least were able to withstand that pressure and ultimately carry out the coup.
Okay, if you put it that way, yes. But I don't want it to be painted as if we were the ones that stood out from the rest. Remember, myself and Sana Sab, it was our conception, it was our plan. We believed in it. Everyone else was brought on board.
But the fact remains that the 3 of you were able to withstand the pressure in spite of all the rumors about coup. You were able to withstand that pressure, and ultimately you carried on and carried out a coup.
Yes, sir.
Good. So what was the initial plan? What were you going to do? What was the first plan?
The initial plan was to take State House. This is what I proposed. I was overruled, and They told me that no, we will arrest the head of state when he arrives at the airport. And I explained to them that, look, there will be civilians there. He's coming on a commercial flight. There will be civilians on the plane. Dignitaries coming to meet him. We cannot risk launching something like this that may involve exchange of fire in such a public place. But they told me, no, this is what we will do. So,
who made that decision?
Well, it was generally an agreement. Well, I would not say an agreement. This is what they felt. This is what Jammeh felt. This is what Sana felt. Who else was there at the meeting? Was it Ndurcham or Alaji Kante? I cannot remember who else was at that meeting, but I know I was overruled. And so what I did, I drew the plans for both the airport and State House at the same time.
Were these written plans or just plans you had in your head and you discussed amongst yourselves?
No, they were all written down and well documented. Written.
Do you have copies? Do you still have copies? It will be interesting.
The night of the 21st, when the coup failed and we knew we were in deep trouble, I ran home and I burnt everything.
You hid the evidence?
I burnt it.
You burnt the evidence?
Yes, I did. I burnt everything. Right. However, obviously I drew the plans. I knew exactly what to do. I had briefed the soldiers prior to go into the airport. All of those soldiers within the Guard of Honor that we needed to, in fact, the plan was that when the president goes between the Guard of Honor, but should I be saying this in public?
Well, I think...
should I be saying some of these things in public? I think...
But yes, but the only exception is national security information. But I'm not sure whether this qualifies, but...
Well, you know, you made a decision about 40 minutes ago not to go into the discussion of a certain thing because of the prevailing circumstances in the country. I also do not want to give ideas to somebody who might say, well, this man said it, and then
fair enough. Fair enough. If you think it gives ideas to others as to how to stage a coup, perhaps maybe we could skip that. But your idea was that at the airport the president would be arrested.
Yes.
And why didn't that happen?
Okay. Like I said, sorry. Yes. You're confirming.
No. Okay. Please proceed.
Like I said, I will skip the details of it, and I will be available for whatever details you want.
No, please, elsewhere. By all means, go ahead.
But generally, it was for the airport. But I can explain exactly what plans, how I drew up the plans for State House. But that one failed. Now, the plan...
Why did it fail?
Yes, I'm coming to that. Not only had it leaked, and that we were searched before we went on parade. Jammeh was disarmed. Sana Sabali was supposed to bring ammunition to the airport because we didn't have any ammunition. And upon his arrival and distribution of the ammunition, which should have coincided with the plane parking at on the apron, then we would have launched. But because we did not have the tools to implement, we could not. That is why it failed.
But we received evidence that after the airport, soldiers went back to barracks. There was talk about it among the soldiers. Even the Nigerians were aware that a coup was in the making.
Yes, that, like I said, it had leaked. In fact, I was a member of the Color Party The color party, those that hold.
What is color party
yes,
for those of us?
Yes. Those that hold the national colors, the flags, the national colors, and the battalion colors. Okay, you understand?
Yes, I do.
Yes. So when we went to receive the colors from the battalion commander's office, there was Colonel Okoji from Army Headquarters seated in the battalion commander's office, along with Captain Biran Sen, who was in charge of military intelligence. So they are never there when we go to retrieve the colors from the battalion commander's office. Prior to that, I think... So
you're suggesting, therefore, that they must have known something was happening?
Of course they knew. I mean, we knew that they knew. In fact, prior to that, a couple of soldiers were arrested and taken to the then NSS, defunct NIA. And I cannot remember exactly who and who they were, but they were interrogated on what was happening in Yundum. So obviously it had leaked, it was rife. Soldiers were talking about it in the camp. Yes,
just
sir.
One last point before we go on our first break.
Yes,
We've
sir.
received testimony from a soldier who said he was there and he had Yaya Jammeh walked into Colonel Akoji's office. No, not Colonel Akoji, the commanding officer at Yundum Barracks at the time.
Colonel Audu.
Yes, and he told him that everything has failed. And the guy told him, but the president is going home at State House.
It's not true.
It's not true.
And I will tell you why. Yaya Jammeh was at the airport. Obviously, the president leaves before anybody leaves. When he came and inspected the Guard of Honor, he left. And so Jammeh could not at that time have been in Yundum Barracks to tell Colonel Audu that it had failed.
No, maybe I mischaracterized it a bit, or maybe
yes,
I was misunderstood. He said, after all the soldiers have left Yundum Barracks, sorry, the airport, and returned to Yundum Barracks, Yaya Jammeh walked into this colonel's office and told him, well, everything has failed. And the Nigerian officer responded that, but it hasn't failed. This man, the president, is going home to State House.
Not true. That is not true at all. First of all, you don't just walk into the battalion commander's office. Secondly, Yaya Jammeh and this particular Colonel Audu, were like cat and mouse. They did not see eye to eye.
Would you say
yes,
that the Nigerian officers were aware that a coup was in the making and they just gave it a blind eye?
No, I would not say that. You see, in order for you to take drastic measures, you need strong enough evidence. I don't believe that they were talking enough to Gambian soldiers or Gambian officers. There was that divide, and also which brought a little bit of discontent. So we worked freely under their nose, perhaps to their knowledge, but there was nothing that they could have done they could have done something about it, but nothing was done because it was perhaps it was just seen as a rumor.
Well, Nigeria is known to have had the most coups in West Africa, and the Nigerian officers obviously are used to coup d'etats. We received evidence suggesting that these Nigerian officers in fact encouraged the Gambian officers to stage a coup d'etat. That
is not true. I was one of those from that started this. There was no encouragement from any Nigerian officer or soldier at Yundum at the time. or in Farafenye or anywhere.
But did they give a blind eye to what was obvious in the camp at the time?
No, I don't believe that they gave a blind eye.
Thank you very much. This is a good point to stop, and we come back after the time the chair would direct.
Thank you, lead counsel. Thank you, witness. We come back at 5 minutes after 12. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singhateh. Welcome back. Before the first break, we were talking about the planning for the coup d'etat of July 1994. And the last thing we talked about was how the Nigerian officers reacted to the rumors of coup d'etat. So you told us that some of the evidence that we've heard that the Nigerians in fact encouraged the coup d'etat, or that they gave a blind eye to what they knew was happening, in your view, was false. So tell us what happened after you left the airport, Jammeh having been disarmed. The weapons did not come as planned. What happened after that? Seeing that it's noon, and we would only have a few more hours of testimony for today, I would encourage that on some of these issues we try to summarize them, and that would give us more time to really look into the more substantive issues that we'd have to deal with. But thank you very much for your understanding. Proceed, please, and tell us what happened after you left the airport.
Yes, sir. After we left the airport, as we always do, we went back to the barracks. We returned those with weapons, with rifles, returned them to the armory. Those of us with the colors, returned the colors, and then we disperse. On this occasion, because the launch of the coup had failed at the airport, I believe some of the soldiers did not disperse.
This rumor that there was going to be a coup d'etat, did the rumor include the names of those who were suspected to be planning the coup d'etat?
I would imagine so. I did not hear the rumor. I was part of it. So I don't know what rumor or what information was received by the higher authorities, or how they heard it, or who was mentioned.
You told us earlier that at the planning stages, you were put under surveillance, some form of surveillance.
Quite true.
On the 21st of July, were you paid any special attention?
Yes, in fact, we were.
Who do you mean when you said we?
Well, those of us that were especially perhaps the ringleaders of the coup. This is what I believe. I know for myself in particular. But let's break it down a little bit more. What happened to Sana Sabali? A couple of days before the 21st, because of the rumor, and I'm quite sure his name being mentioned, he was transferred to Farafenye. He didn't go. I think he went and came back and then did not go back. He was there for the event. So that is one example. I, for myself, when we left Yundum and I was dropped home, I could see there was somebody hanging around the junction of my house who was looking at me and looked suspect. I believed that he was an agent of the NSS. I went in, changed, and came out very quickly, and he was still around, and not snooping around, but like he was trying to, it appeared as if he was monitoring me. So what I did, because we had agreed to meet up, myself and Jammeh, Sana was nowhere to be seen. So because we were downhearted, we were disgruntled, we didn't know what was going to happen. This thing had failed, it's out in the open, most likely we are going to be arrested. So in order to get to Jammeh's house in Bakau, what I did, I came out of the compound, he was still there looking. I got into a taxi immediately and then went to Serakunda. Immediately joined a vehicle to Banjul. I dropped off almost opposite the hospital and ran down one of those small streets to Gloucester. There was a shop on the corner, so I waited there for a few minutes to see if I was being tailed. I was not. I then proceeded immediately to the Bakau garage and spent some time in the shop just to see if I was still being tailed. And I waited for one of the vans, because you know they wait for the vans to fill up before they depart. I waited until there was a last passenger for one of the vans, and the next van would have to fill up. So I jumped in quickly, and then the van departed.
Just to make sure that the next van would not depart immediately.
Exactly. But you know, I mean, being a trained officer, I mean there's certain precautions that you were taught. I mean, how to...
What time of the day was this?
This was in the early evening. I cannot remember when the plane landed, but the guard of honor doesn't take much time. We went, deposited the colors, and then we departed Yundum almost immediately. I think it was still light, because being July, you know, the sun does not set as early as in the winter time, let's say November to February. So there was still a little bit of light, but by the time I reached Bakau, it was just after dusk.
And did you meet Jammeh?
Yes, I went straight to his house. I met Jammeh, and he was there with one Ibrahim Abba. This Ibrahim Abba at the time was my company sergeant major. And he was also part and parcel. He was on board, but not one of the officer ringleaders. He was an NCO at the time. I hope I'm not speaking too fast for the interpreters.
Well, it's fine for now. Proceed, please.
Okay, thank you. So,
well, the interpreters just indicate that you should slow down a little bit.
Okay, my apologies. Yeah. So the three of us were at Jammeh's house, and we were debating on what to do next.
Did you agree anything?
Well, Ibrahim Abba was saying that it is failed, it's not going to succeed, everything is over. And an argument ensued, a bitter argument between him and Jammeh ensued. I had to come between them. But we had generally agreed that in the morning we would launch the coup, because the soldiers had been briefed and it was ripe. But we were also informed that the following morning, it was not that we were informed. We were aware of the presence of a U.S. Marine vessel, Lamore County, that was in the Gambia, and we were supposed to have exercises, a military exercise with them. So before the exercise, we had, we had decided that we would launch the coup before the exercise.
Was it designed to use the exercise as cover for the coup you were going to launch?
No, it was mere coincidence. The coup was in the making long before we were even informed of the imminent arrival of the U.S. Marine Corps vessel.
So what time did you leave Jammeh's house on that evening?
I left Jammeh's house pretty late. I went home And then a couple of hours later, Jammeh had arrived at my house. He was shouting, but I was sleeping, and then he was throwing stones on my roof to get my attention. And my mother woke me and said that somebody shouting your name outside, and I got up and realized it was Jammeh. He told me to dress up and come out, so I did. Dressed up, and he told me that Sana had just called him and told him that Sana had broken into one of the armories at Yundum Barracks, and that the coup is on, and that he should come and bring me along. So the coup in itself was launched by Lieutenant Sana Sabali. He launched the coup.
So what time did Jammeh arrive at your house? Do you know?
Somewhere between, I think it was after 2, between 2 and 3.
So what did you do upon receiving that information?
I followed him. We went, I dressed up, and we went to Yundum.
And tell us what you found in Yundum when you arrived there.
When I arrived, or when we arrived at Yundum Barracks, there were soldiers who were not supposed to be there, obviously, soldiers who had not gone home after the airport.
And these are soldiers belonging to Alpha Company or soldiers belonging to other companies?
Well, I believe there was a mixture. Because I can recall seeing soldiers from other companies as well. The main company on parade and on that day was Alpha Company. That was the company on parade.
By coincidence or by design?
No, that was by coincidence. We did not have the power to pick whatever company is detailed to go on parade. In fact, you have 3 infantry companies, infantry companies in an infantry battalion. One is on guard duty, the other one is on standby, the other one is on rest. So the ones on guard at the time would be exempt from parade.
Okay. So you arrived with Jammeh at
Yes,
Yundum Barracks. You found all the soldiers there.
Yes,
Tell
sir.
us what happened quickly in summary so that we can make progress.
Yes, well, soldiers were being armed. They were taking arms from the armory, but the armory...
The old or the new armory at the time?
It was the old armory that Sana Sabali had broken into. Yes.
Okay. And what type of weapons did he take from that armory?
Various weapons. There were some GPMGs, general purpose machine guns. There were some other support weapons. There were some AK-47s, but not that many.
And then when you arrived there, what did you guys do?
Well, we started trying to organize the men that we had with us. And that took a very long process, because the more you try to organize the men, prep them for departure, for both Fajara Barracks and for State House, the more men were coming, the more arms and ammunition were required. So there was a need to break into the main armory. Now, I know they looked for the keys, they couldn't find the keys. And then, because I think they broke into the adjutant's office and searched the place, they couldn't find the keys. But what I do know is that subsequently, my AK-47, my personal rifle, was brought to me. At
what time was that?
This was early hours of the morning.
6, 7, or 4, 5?
No, not 4, 5. I think somewhere between 6 and 7, but it's been 25 years. I cannot remember the exact time.
Was it before or after the arrival of Sirif Gomez?
It was before the arrival of Sirif Gomez that I myself had my weapon.
Okay. So you organized yourselves.
Yes, sir.
And prepared for deployment.
Yes, sir.
At that stage, where was the duty officer at the camp?
Now, we were busy organizing, as you had just mentioned, and it was after a while that we realized that the duty officer was not around. So we went so we asked for him, and we were told that he was in the officers' mess or the ante-room. We went, myself, Sana Sabali, and Yaya Jamme, to go and get him. And we looked through the window, and he was dressing up at the time.
What was his name?
His name was Omar Mbai. He was a lieutenant at the time. So we knocked on the door and asked him to open, and he eventually opened the door. And when he opened the door, we secured him and took him to the guard room.
What do you mean by we secured him?
We took his AK-47 and we took him to the guard room and detained him.
You arrested him?
Well, yes, we arrested him, but we didn't tell him that you were under arrest. We just told him to come with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then you detained him where?
We detained him in the guard room at Yundum Barracks.
At that stage, did you make a decision as to what should happen to officers or men who would come into the barracks?
Yes, we did. We had taken a decision and given an order for all officers who were not part of the coup to be temporarily detained until the outcome of the takeover, till the outcome of the coup.
Were any officers arrested and detained after Mr. Mbai was arrested?
Several officers were arrested and detained, but the reason for that was a simple one. You see, once you launch a coup and you have some that are not part of the coup in the same barracks with arms and ammunition, there could, the most likely outcome is that fighting would break out. And we did not want to start fighting amongst ourselves even before we had departed. So in order to prevent bloodshed amongst ourselves, or for fighting to spill out into the wider population, we detained them at Yundum Barracks.
But you would agree with me that that was supposed to be a temporary measure until the dust has settled?
Absolutely. It was just a temporary measure.
And you would also agree with me that the conditions of detention did not need to be harsh because these people were just to be secured in order to ensure that they are pretty much neutralized from the possibility of launching a counter coup.
I absolutely agree, but we could only make use of the infrastructure and facilities available to us at the time.
We would come to all those things later. So Mr. Sirif Gomez, he arrived in the morning. Could you tell us what happened to him?
Yes, I was somewhere in the barracks, and I was alerted that there was a commotion in the guard room, that Sirif Gomez had arrived, that they had asked him to get into the cell, and he refused, so there was a commotion. So I went to the guard room, and as soon as I arrived, he tried to walk towards me. He was obviously stopped. He was surrounded by 2 or 3 other soldiers, and then he asked me what is going on, and I explained to him. I told him that there's an imminent, there's a takeover in progress, and this government, the Jawara regime, is going to be removed. So he tried to say that he was part of it and so on and so forth, but obviously I didn't buy into that. But with the commotion in the guard room, I did fire a shot into the ceiling Now,
into the ceiling of the guard room.
Into the ceiling of the guard room.
Well, the story we received from Sirif Gomez suggests that this event, in fact, took place outside the guard room, and that you fired shots, not just one shot over his head, intimidating him, scaring the hell out of him.
Not true. First of all, whether inside or outside of the guard room, if I had fired shots just above his head, there would have been bullet holes in the wall behind him. So,
not necessarily.
Of course, because just above his head.
If it was outside,
if it was
open space.
No, it's not an open space, because obviously, if it was outside the guard room, he would have just come outside, and his back would have been to the guard room, and therefore, whatever shots I fired would have gone directly into the wall. But the incident took place inside the guard room, not outside.
You secured Sirif Gomez,
yes,
and ensured that he was detained, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
Well, once he was secured, I went back to the business of organizing the troops.
What time did you and your crew decide to leave Yundum Barracks to go and to the various locations that you were supposed to go?
When we had been satisfied that all of the troops had been armed, we divided them into 3 groups. One group to go to State House, one group to go to Fajara Barracks, and the other group to remain at Yundum and provide reinforcements as and when necessary.
Okay, let's do this quickly.
Yes.
The group at Yundum was under whose leadership?
It was under Ibrahim Abba.
That's the sergeant who
yes,
had altercation with Yaya Jammeh the night before.
The company sergeant major.
That's right.
Yes.
And who was to go to Fajara Barracks?
Fajara Barracks was Sana Sabali and Sadibu Haidara.
And who was to take State House?
Myself and Yaya Jammeh.
Okay. Did the deployment go smoothly?
Well, the deployment did not go smoothly at the beginning.
Why?
Because the trucks, the vehicles at Yundum were immobilized. Immobilized in the sense that the keys were all missing. Now, we wanted to perhaps break the ignition and hot wire, but then we thought, look, these are vehicles that if we succeed, we're going to rely on. There's no need to do damage to them. We went to the highway and commandeered several vehicles.
Who gave that order?
It was a decision, it was not a specific order that you, X, Y, and Z do this. What we realized was that we had a mobility situation and vehicles were passing along the highway. So it was just suggested, let us go and commandeer vehicles, and that's what we did.
At this stage, was there a designated leader for the coup?
There was no designated leader for the coup. In fact, we had agreed not to distribute positions of responsibility amongst ourselves at any point in time. Firstly, because we didn't know who was going to live and who was going to die. But moreover, because really that was not the reason why we launched the coup in the first place.
So, tell us the sequence of deployment.
Yes. Once we had enough vehicles to move to the various locations, Sana Sabali and Sadibu Haidara and their troops boarded their vehicles and departed.
To Fajara Barracks?
To Fajara Barracks. I lined up the vehicles for State House and got the men on board, and then Jammeh said that I can go ahead without him.
He tried to chicken out.
Yes, he did. I just don't want you to use the word chicken. But yes, he tried to opt out of going to State House. And I told him that no, this is what we agreed on.
In fact, we did hear stories that he delayed and dilly-dallied and waited for jujus to come from maybe Casamas or something, which he had to use before he left.
That is not true. Yaya Jammeh had more than enough jujus.
At any point in time, you mean?
At any point in time. In fact, he even gave me some. So he was very generous with. Okay. Let's put it this way. It's not only Yaya Jammeh who gave me jujus. Jujus came from all corners of the barracks. I didn't have any. I don't believe. That those things can protect you from an AK-47 bullet.
How about black bulls? Can they?
Black bulls? I don't think so. But okay. Soldiers would come and say, officer, ngalong okay, fente bulu bari nyimuta ase kantano.
Could you translate that in English?
Sorry for breaking into Mandinka without seeking your
permission. That is
okay.
Fine. If you wish, you could do part of your testimony in Mandinka, part in Wolof. If you can also do Fula, we'll be welcome.
Okay, kana koronto bina Mandinka kan wafanam Fula bari nyato do Mandinka manke saindi.
Okay, good.
So what the soldiers would tell me is that okay, so we know that you don't have any protection. Here's this, it will protect you from live bullets and save you, something like that.
We did receive testimony that somebody came with a calabash that contained some concoction for Jammeh, and Jammeh was generous to give to all those around him to apply on them. Is that story true?
I saw many strange things. Many strange things.
Is that one true?
But I did not see the calabash with a concoction.
Oh, okay.
I did not.
Can you give us a little insight into those strange things, just very briefly?
Okay, there was a soldier that I saw with a stick in his mouth. And when I called him, he answered, yes, sir. And I told him, take this stick out of your mouth. He said, sir, no, sir. As long as it is in my mouth, nobody can kill me. So he had this stick in his mouth for as long as I can remember seeing him, from July 22nd to the couple of days after. So that was one of the, the things. But yes, of course, there were many jujus. Yes.
So you succeeded in getting Jammeh on a vehicle? Yes.
When he opted out or tried to opt out, I refused. And I told him that no, it's not what we agreed. We are going to take State House and you are coming. So I grabbed him by the arm and put him in one of the trucks and I sandwiched him.
But this is a senior officer.
Sir, at that time, the reason why I had to go to that extent was because if you have officers opting out at that time, what will the other ranks do when bullets start firing?
You sensed that he was afraid. We heard that he was a coward. What would you say to that?
Sir, coward is a very strong word.
Well, you've been described here as a very brave soldier. He was described as a coward. What do you say to that?
I was just an average soldier. I would not say brave. But as far as his cowardice is goes, I would just say that he did want to opt out, and I refused.
He displayed tendencies of a coward. Yes or no?
Well, I am not sure. Anyway,
we will take it that perhaps you did not wish to paint your superior in such poor light. especially in such an important operation. But nonetheless, you had to grab him by the scruff.
Quite true.
And
Not
put
by
him
the
in a
scruff.
vehicle.
Not
well,
by the
okay,
scruff.
by the neck
arm.
or by
no,
the arm.
By the arm.
By
yes.
the arm.
Yes,
put
sir.
him in a vehicle
Yes,
and
sir.
made sure that he was sandwiched by soldiers so
Yes,
that
sir.
he wouldn't even have the chance to run away.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
That happened.
So you moved from there towards Banjul. Tell us what happened.
We disembarked shortly before the bridge. I cannot recall whether it was 700-800 meters or a kilometer, 1,000 meters, but we disembarked and we moved tactically towards the bridge. What I did was, and I'm saying this, that I did this at this point in time because I drew the plans to take State House. Yahya Jammeh is not an infantry officer, and therefore he would not have been able to command the troops under such circumstances.
In fact, some say that because he was not an infantry soldier, he was not recognized as a soldier as such. The subordinates did not see him as a well-grounded soldier. And in fact, a lot of the time they looked down upon him as a soldier. Is that right?
What I can say is that Yahya Jammeh was trained by the gendarmerie and he was a paramilitary officer.
But this is an easy question for a yes or no answer.
Yes, sir, but I want to give some context to it. And since it is...
Can we answer yes or no, and then if need be, we go into the context? Was he recognized as a well-trained soldier?
Sorry, just before I answer that yes or no, the reason why I did not answer yes or no is because there were so many parts to your question. Okay. And all of them cannot have a yes and all of them cannot have a no. But to this last question, yes, he was not recognized as just like the other infantry officers because he was not. He did not have the skill set.
That's right. Okay. And as a result of that, you took charge of the situation, correct?
All the way to Banjul State House, yes.
Yes. So can you tell us what happened at the bridge when you arrived there?
Yes, sir. First of all, I had to put the troops in formation, which is normal when you are advancing to contact, expecting an ambush. You have to employ the formation that would be best employable against such a threat. So we reached the bridge and we had found that some soldiers had already departed ahead of us and secured the combo side of the bridge. Now, there were also some members of the tactical support group commando unit.
Headed by who at the time?
At that time, I cannot remember who the head of the commandos were.
So I mean the tactical support group forces that you found at the bridge.
Yes, I cannot remember under whose command they were. But I do know that there was a group of them that were there. Believe there was there Major Suare there too? But what I do recall was that by the time we reached the bridge, RSM Jeng was just crossing the bridge to go back. So we spoke to the commandos at the bridge.
Do you recall who you spoke to specifically?
No, not specifically.
We received evidence
Yes.
that Major Suare was there at the time and that he had a conversation with Yahya Jammeh and those who were with him. What do you say to that?
It's possible he conversed with Yahya Jammeh.
Yes, proceed, please.
Yes, no, I just answered your question. I said it's possible that he did have a conversation with Yahya Jammeh, but the main event at the bridge at the time, shortly before we were going to cross, because what we had realized was that the bulk of the commandos were on the other side of the bridge, towards the Banjul side, not within direct sight, but we knew they were there.
We received evidence from Captain Amadou Soare, captain at the time, and he said that when your party arrived, he spoke to Yaya Jammeh, and Yaya tried to convince him to support the coup. And Yaya promised him that he would be given the post of Minister of Foreign Affairs if he supported the coup. What do you say to that?
Well, I was not privy to that conversation.
Thank you. What do you say to also the suggestion by Soare that he agreed to support the coup and he asked his troops to join, but he told Jammeh that he would be the person to lead the party from Denton Bridge onwards to take State House, and that he in fact led the group from Denton Bridge to State House? What do you say to that?
Well, with regards to the conversation between him and Jammeh, I can neither confirm or deny that because I was not privy to it. With regards to him leading the troops from the bridge to State House, that is inaccurate.
It's false.
It is not true, yes.
Good. Who led the group, the troops, to State House?
I led the troops to State House. Jammeh was behind somewhere. Now, let me explain. Once we crossed the bridge tactically, they had already been divided into 3 groups prior. And we took the formation 2 up and 1 down. The headquarters was to be in the middle, and I was supposed to be there with Jammeh in the headquarters, controlling the movement towards Banjul. The group to my right was on the right side of the road. They were scattered anywhere from 20-30 meters from the highway into the mangroves, in an extended line, because we were expecting an ambush. There was another group towards the other side along the beach, and there was one in reserve. I'm using the term groups because they were not exactly platoons. They could have been oversized platoons, etc. But these were, normally it would have been either sections or platoons or companies, as the case may be. But because we did not have the exact size of the units, I divided them equally into 3 groups in this manner, expecting contact with the commandos at any point.
Did you encounter any resistance on the way to Banjul?
Well, what happened was that as soon as we crossed the bridge and we moved for a couple of 100 meters down the road, we saw a truck coming, and it stopped, turned, and then we saw commandos coming out of the bushes on the side of the road. They jumped onto the truck, and then it sped off to Banjul, towards Banjul. But we still ensured that we moved tactically, not believing that perhaps they were not going to still spring an ambush further down the line. But nonetheless, as my suspicions were true, whenever we came within a distance of 400-500 meters of the commandos, the truck, we will see the truck coming, and then they will come out of the bush, board the truck, and then head to Banjul. We finally encountered the group of commandos at Banjul, just opposite Gambia High School.
How about before, at around Bone Road, did you encounter any resistance?
Yes, with regards to the incident at Bone Road, yes. We moved towards Banjul in our formation, and less than 100 meters, somewhere between 50 to 75 meters away from the junction, we came under fire from the mangroves, which are on the right side of the road in the junction between Bond Road and the highway to Banjul. There's some mangroves, and there was a group of police officers that apparently were there, and they shot at us.
Was it the police officers who shot at you, or one specific individual amongst them?
Well, we came under fire, and so I believe that all of them were firing, because if it is one rifle, you know. If it is more than two, you know. And it was a group of people that all opened fire at the same time, so we were ambushed. We dashed down, we conducted our anti-ambush drills, we laid down suppressive fire on the position. I signaled to the group to my right to flank. They initially couldn't see because from where I was and lying down, so I sent my runner. I can't remember who he was. I sent somebody within the headquarter group to go and ask them to flank.
Where was Yaya Jammeh at this time?
I don't know. He was somewhere behind. I didn't see him until, but I'm coming to that. Once they flanked,
we received evidence that it was AIG Chongan who, in fact, opened fire on your group, and when he realized that his men were not coming out to defend as he predicted, he also tried to run away from the scene to protect himself. What do you say to that?
No, sir. What I saw, or what I witnessed, was that my troops flanked, we took the position, but what they did was that they stormed the position and took the rifles that the police had and yanked them out of the position.
Yes, but in relation to Mr. Chonga.
Yes, I'm coming to that, sir. Yes. So we brought them forward, and then Yaya Jammeh came. That was the time Yaya Jammeh came, when these people had been brought out from their ambush position. And we all asked them, we were asking them, who sent you? Why did you ambush us? We didn't fire on you. We were coming towards Banjul, and you opened fire. And I think they were led by one Vincent something. The surname will come to my mind, I'm sure, during the course of the testimony. But anyway, when Yaya Jammeh was also asking, because I think he knew some of them, they informed us that it was Ibrahim Chongan who had sent them. But I never saw Ibrahim Chongan at this. If he was there, I would have seen him. And if he had tried to flee, I would have seen somebody fleeing.
Well, he did say he fled the scene. And
no, because if he had fled, we would have known that somebody had tried to escape. Because where did he escape to? That's what I don't know. And why would you go and lead your men into combat and then flee and leave them there?
Did you encounter fire only once during that operation?
We encountered that one along the way to Banjul. The next one was at State House, but I will explain that when we come to that.
On the way to Banjul, you did not encounter any other fire?
No, we did not.
Okay. So you went all the way to Gambia High School.
Yes.
Tell us what happened there.
Yes, sir. When we reached Banjul, just opposite the Christian cemetery, we could see the commandos opposite Gambia High School, the ones that had subsequently laid ambush for us, but entered their truck and then moved as we were advancing. So they did not attack, they did not fire upon us. So when we met them there, we decided to engage them. And I told them that, look, you know, we are not here to fight against you. We are just here for the system. You can join us if you want. But if you don't want to join us, then we will have to secure you. So they agreed to join us.
Would Bineminte be amongst them?
No, sir. Bineminte was not there.
So what happened after that?
So they decided to join, and I disarmed them anyway. They protested, and I told them, no, you know, you are just coming on board. Most likely we will encounter heavy resistance at State House. And I cannot risk having you, who you've been sent to neutralize us, amongst our ranks as we are trying to quell any resistance, possible resistance that we have, that we encounter at State House. So, what you do, if you believe in the cause, if you believe that a positive change can be made, just follow us. If any of us are shot and we fall, pick up that rifle and then continue the fight. So they agreed. They were behind, and then they followed. And we made sure that the rifles were kept in the truck that was following behind us with additional ammunition and other supplies.
And then from there, how did you go into Banjo?
So from there, I divided the troops further. One group was the group on the beach was to remain on the beach and go towards the rear of State House. The group from the rear was to go with Yaya Jammeh towards the back gate along Marina Parade. And I was supposed to go with the main group round the front gate to take State House from there, because the guard room is located nearer to the front gate, and we envisaged that that is where the heavy resistance would have been.
So your group went through Independence Drive, Bata, and then State House, Quadrangle area, then State House. Did you encounter any resistance there?
Well, once we reached Quadrangle, what I did, I divided the troops further. I sent a smaller contingent through Quadrangle, because there is cover. You cannot see from State House who is coming up through that. And I went with the larger group around where they would be able to see, and they would be concentrating on my group. So we turned towards the State House after going around July 22nd Square. We took up positions. Of course, you have
McCarthy
to move.
Square.
Okay, sorry. Is it now McCarthy? It's changed back.
No, that's just to lighten the mood.
Okay,
but go ahead.
okay. If it has been changed back, let me know so that I can at least because it was McCarthy Square at the time anyway. So we went round McCarthy Square, and we took up positions. And once I had placed the men in cover that would protect them from fire from within State House, I shouted and I demanded for the gates to be opened. Now, but I did obviously make a threat, because I shouted, there was no response. I shouted and I said, because we were armed with RPG-7s and and so on, and machine guns. And I told them that, look, if you don't open, then I will have no choice but to blow the door open. So please open the gate. And then Bakari Kamara came to the gate. I think he was a sergeant at the time, and told me, don't shoot, don't shoot. The keys are with Langtombong Tamba. And I asked, where is Langtombong Tamba? He said, he's in the office. And I told him then, go and get the keys. So I held my men in their positions. We waited patiently. After a few minutes, he appeared. But as he was coming towards the gate, there was a shot that rang out. And I could see him take off his beret and then wave it to signify that the shot was not fired in aggression.
At this time, State House was not as fortified
Absolutely.
as it is today. And
Yes.
you could literally see through the gate.
I could see through the gate. I definitely could see through the gate. For those who cannot remember what the gate looked like at the time. So I could see, and once I saw that...
In fact, at the time, one could really walk almost through State House in between the beach and the actual building. You recall that?
Yes, there was a time that that was possible, but subsequently it was closed, and during, I think, the period of 1994, Bakari Kamara came and opened the gate.
We received testimony suggesting that Yaya Jammeh spoke to Langtombong Tamba in Jola, and then Langtombong Tamba decided to open the gate, that is the back gate, for Yaya Jammeh and his party to walk into State House. What do you say to that?
What I can recall is that Bakari Kamara came with the keys. They had chained it and padlocked it and opened it, and I moved in with my men. I asked the presidential guards to lay down their weapons, which they did, and I assured them that there was going to be no harm that comes to any of them, that we are not interested in fighting with them. It was then that I sent somebody to go and open the back gate for Yaya Jammeh to come in.
As far as you're concerned, Langtombong Tamba did not have any role in that?
Not to my knowledge. To the best of my knowledge is what I have narrated here.
We received information that as soon as you entered State House, Yaya Jammeh took off his uniform and was bare-chested and having some of these jujus in his mouth and exuding a lot of bravado and bravery. Yes, I have taken over State House. What do you say to that?
Well, when he was coming from the back gate after I sent people to open it, he still had his uniform on. There was no jujus in his mouth. And even though the way he walks, you know, is very distinguished, but...
Or distinctive?
Or, yes, if you want to use that adjective, yes. Distinctive, yes, perhaps might be the correct word. That was it. No, he was... there was no real sense of jubilation at the time. Things were tense. You know, it was still
and
very
subsequently,
tense.
what happened? Let's try to go through this quickly so that we can get to the most important details.
Yes, sir. Subsequently, what happened was Sana Sabali, in addition to Sana Sabali's mission to take Fajara barracks, he also had the mission to secure Gamtel and switch off the international gateway. Yes. Anyway, I mean, there were several other secondary objectives like closing down the airport, closing down the seaport, securing the borders, etc., etc. So once we had secured State House and Sana Sabali and others had come to join us, we set about doing most of those secondary tasks.
And you left State House to go and implement some of these secondary tasks. Is that true?
Yeah, some were. I think Sana Sabali was the one who implemented most of those tasks, if I can recall.
Did you personally have to go to the Marine unit to secure their cooperation?
No, we did not. I visited the Marine unit, and they were already there on standby. There was no resistance. I met the commander of the Marine unit, the Marine unit at the time, Major Antoman Saho, and he was welcoming, and he ensured that the ferries stayed on the side of Banjul, and that they were properly guarded, and that they were not able to ferry across to fetch anyone. We basically shut down all movement.
How was a government formed now that you have taken over State House? Tell us the process and how that unfolded.
Yes, sir. What we first of all did was decide to meet with officers from all of the security services, including those that had not been arrested from the Gambia National Army, which included even customs was, I believe, was involved. What we wanted was to have the opportunity to explain ourselves. We didn't want instability immediately after we had taken over. We didn't want a fight to break out and there be bloodshed. The Almighty Allah had already blessed us with the main event or incident of taking over being completely bloodless. And this is what we wanted to maintain. It was important to us. So we met with all of the security officers and explained and asked for their buy-in, asked for their cooperation. Now, the first meeting was at the bandstand towards the Marina Parade Gate, the back gate towards the RVTH. And before we could conclude the meeting or even get halfway through the meeting, Sana Sabali arrived with his convoy along with Sadibu Haidara, and he was in a fit of rage. He was visibly disturbed, and he wanted to start opening fire on some of the officers. And I can remember Jammeh asking him, "But Sana, Boyle, what is wrong? What is wrong?" And he said he heard information that the other officers wanted to launch a counter coup and remove us. But we had to physically restrain him and tell him that no, we invited them, we asked them to come. Because like I said earlier, he was the one who went out to implement most of the other tasks. So I don't know where he got this information and he rushed in. But once we had restrained him and tried to explain to him, he still wasn't happy, but the meeting had to end.
Could you tell us who are the senior officers who were present?
Whoa, every senior officer at the time.
I can suggest names to you.
Please.
Mama Cham was present.
Oh, no, I don't believe Mama Cham was present at that meeting.
Samsudin Sar, was he present?
Samsudin Sar, I know, was present at the next one in the drawing room, and I will come to that.
Okay. We did receive information that on the next day, Babukar Jata arrived there with Mama Cham, and you personally sent Babukar Jata away. And you invited Mama Cham in. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, there is some truth to that. We had sent, I'm not sure whether it's exactly the very next day or the day after, because things were moving pretty fast and it was very difficult to keep track of time and nobody was sleeping.
Yes.
But when they did come, because we had already sent for Babukar Jata, and asked him to come. And the information that we got back from the soldier that we sent, and for the life of me I cannot remember exactly who that was that Babukar Jatta had said, he had made some comments, and anyway, they were not positive. They were not against the coup, but like he was not sure where this thing is going, and he's not going to come. Something of the sort. But it's understandable, at that time.
Was that the reason why, when he arrived, you
That
sent
is
him
why
away?
I sent him away.
But you invited Mama Cham
I
in.
invited Mama Cham in. I definitely
so tell
did.
us how this government, this ruling council was formed.
Okay, so during the second or third meeting that we had with the officers, which was at the drawing room, we had no council, we had no government, we had just taken over, and there was a vacuum. Obviously, government, there was no government, of course.
But the day before, an announcement had been made, correct?
Not the day before that. The announcement of the takeover.
Yes,
had been made. Yes.
and by who, do you recall?
Yes, I believe the first announcement was made by one Captain Sonko.
That's right. Do you know who wrote that speech? There is dispute. Some say it was written by Sonko, others say it was written by Captain Samsidin Sarr, captain at the time. What do you say to that?
Now let me explain exactly what happened. The announcement that was made by Captain Sonko was off the cuff, and it was wrong. We did not like that I think I did not hear the announcement, but from what I was told, he banged the table and was threatening that if anybody is seen, and they will be shot. It was not a friendly statement, but one of the principles of revolutionary warfare, which is also a principle of counter-revolutionary warfare, is winning the hearts and minds of people. We wanted to win the hearts and minds of Gambians. We didn't want to be chased out immediately. So, the statement that you're talking about happened immediately after the council had been formed.
That is the statement that was written and structured.
That was, there was a statement written by Samsidin Sarr.
Was it read out?
No, that's not the statement that was read. The statement that was read was written by Yahya Jammeh himself. So,
this is at the stage when a council had been formed and
but
the
let me
leadership...
just highlight a little bit about the statement.
Please proceed.
Samsidin Sarr brought the statement to me, and I read it. It was good. And then Yahya Jammeh came downstairs, and I said, Captain Sarr has written a statement. This is better than Captain Sonko's, and I believe you can read. He said he's written his own, and Captain Sarr said, "Let me see." So he took the statement, looked at it, and then said, "Ndeke jola munna binda." I can recall Yahya Jammeh did not take too kindly to that. He didn't take any steps at that point, but I could see he was not happy. But that happened after the formation of the council.
Okay. Tell us how the council was formed.
So how the council was formed. During the meeting with the other officers in the drawing room inside the State House building, all of us were there. All of the council members were there. In fact, at that time, even Yankuba Toure and Major Jiba had crossed from Nyomi to Banjul on a small vessel, I believe, and left the troops on the other side. So there was a difficulty in getting any headway. Everyone was coming up with different ideas. It was not structured. The meeting was not chaired by anyone, because there was no leader. We did not have any specific or strict leadership. So Samsidin Sar actually was the one who got up and said, look, yena def sen kubi. Eglen Siko, sorry, can I speak Wolof? Yes.
By all means, please.
Because he said it in Wolof. Yena def sen kubi.
You did your coup d'etat?
Yes. Yena def sen kubi.
You did your coup d'etat?
What? Okay, I thought somebody was trying to put words in my mouth. Okay. That Yenadef, okay, when I speak of, okay, vernacular, they have to, okay, interpret so that everyone, okay, now I understand. My apologies. When a Yenadef Kubi.
You did your coup d'etat?
Eglen Siko.
Go upstairs.
Ngen decide yeninen.
Decide amongst yourselves.
Kan mo wara nekalan.
Who should become who? What?
Solen wache.
When you climb down.
Climb down.
Or when you come return.
It's not a ladder. If it was a ladder, then. But when you come down, when you come down, we will accept whatever you have decided.
That's right, and you did exactly that.
Yes, we did.
And when you went upstairs, who went upstairs?
Lieutenant Jammeh, Lieutenant Sabali, Lieutenant Sadibu Haidara, and myself at that point.
No Yankuba Ture at that point?
Ture at that point.
Okay. And then what was decided?
So, first of all, we looked at the leadership, who was going to lead the revolution at the time, who was going to be head of state. And I suggested Yahya Jammeh.
Why?
Well, because the way Sana had acted in the immediate aftermath got me worried that if he could threaten to kill security officers on information that has not been verified, that, is frightening. Frightening in the sense that you have somebody with such a temperament. It's not safe to put in such a position of power.
He was not stable enough to become head of state.
I would not say stable.
With an AK-47 and a rocket launcher in his possession.
I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
But you arrived at that conclusion.
I cannot say whether he was stable or not. But what I do know that his erratic behavior was a concern for me.
And erratic behavior got to do with one's stability.
Well,
isn't it?
If it is consistent,
psychology.
If it is consistent and permanent, then yes. But temporal erratic behavior doesn't mean that you are not stable.
But you believe nonetheless that at the time, Sana Sabali did not have the temperament to become head of state.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. So you supported Jammeh?
Yes, and I must state for the record, prior to that, Sana Sabali had been one of the nicest people you could possibly meet. Being a close friend and one of the because it was myself and him who started all of this. And he was my senior, even though we were both second lieutenants. It was either going to be him or me. Me, perhaps, because I did the bulk of mobilization of the troops and they had that affinity to me. Him, perhaps, because he was senior and had been in the army longer than me. So,
and launched the coup.
Yes, and launched the coup. Not to forget that.
But nonetheless, you selected Jammeh.
I suggested Jammeh.
Did the others agree?
Well, Sana Sabali, I could see, was not happy. And I agree. If I was in his position too, perhaps I would have felt the same.
Was that the beginning of bad blood between the two?
On hindsight, looking back on a lot of things, I believe perhaps it could have been, and perhaps even between myself and him.
And Sana, you mean?
Yes, yes, sir.
At that stage, having decided who was going to be head of state,
So what
on
we
positions?
did, yes, sir. What happened was when I suggested that Jammeh be the head of whatever we were setting up at the time, he should lead the whole process. I could see Sana's countenance change immediately. He was not happy, and was it Sadibu Hydra question, but why? And I said, but because he's the senior. He's the most senior. He's going to take the position. So then he in turn immediately said, but then I want Singhateh as my vice.
Who said that?
Jammeh said that. And I told him, no, sir. I'm going back to barracks. They all said, no, we are in this. No, nobody's going anywhere. So then it was Sadibu Hydra. So I think Jammeh repeated, yes, okay, then I want this man as the vice chairman. And it was Sadibu Hydra who said, no, was it not Singhateh who said seniority? Sana Sabali is senior to Edward Singhateh, and Sana Sabali should be vice. And I agreed, I concurred. I said, yes, if it's seniority, then of course. So Sana Sabali became vice chairman of the council at the time. So then distributing the other positions, I straight away told him that, look, defense is my niche. I know that. I can promise that this country will be secure during whatever period we remain. So I took defense, and interior was given to Sadibu Hydra. Now, because of seniority, you had Jammeh, who was AFPRC 1, so yes, AFPRC 1, not to confuse it with APRC. And then Sana Sabali was AFPRC 2, second in command. Third was Sadibu Hydra 3, I was 4. Now, we decided that the 4 of us were not enough to manage a government. We needed more help, perhaps from amongst ourselves, before we invite civilians. Now, I will explain the civilian component. So, no, actually, the first argument was that the council itself is too small. So I suggested Yankuba Toure, and Jammeh said no. Why Yanks? And I said, no, well, you might not know, but Yanks was aware of this all along. He did not betray us. He did not report the matter. So he deserves a position on the council. So we agreed, and Yankuba was sent for and made Minister for Local Government and Lands. So we thought, okay, but we have other senior officers. What do? We then decided to appoint Mama Cham, Minister for Works, Samsidin Sar, Minister for Information, and Director of Medical Services was to go to, it was Dr. Njai, Pachah Njai, who was appointed as Director of Medical Services. So this was the military component. And then it came to selecting a good and strong, robust civilian component that will be able to complement the military council and take the country in the right direction.
That's how AFPRC was born?
Yes, sir.
All right. But soon after its birth, some of the co-opted members or some of the ministers some of the military personnel who were designated ministers were arrested, and there were many more arrests of security detainees, of military personnel, correct?
Yes, sir, that is definitely correct.
In fact, many people were arrested. Officers were arrested and detained, including, I am reading from Exhibit 3, Madam Chair. We have Captain Ibrahim Akambi, Captain Mamad Cham, Captain Bell Wilson, Captain Sirif Samsar, Captain James C. Johnson, Captain Dur Cham, Captain Momodou K. Sonko. Captain Sonko, that's Kenyeleng Manso, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
He's the guy who announced the coup in the first instance.
Yes, sir.
Captain Dur Cham was one of the original members who fell by the wayside, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you have Major Malik S. Njai, who was made Director of Medical Services.
Yes, sir.
Major Turo Jaune, Lieutenant Sirif M.L. Gomez, Second Lieutenant Alaji Kante, who too was an original member. Second Lieutenant A. Kinte, I would imagine, original member. Second Lieutenant Yankuba Drame, Sergeant Musa Mane, Sergeant Faraba Sabali, Staff Sergeant Lamin Sambu, WO2 Babukar Jeng, WO Alaji Fai, WO2 Musa Sise, Private Boridabo, Corporal Momodu Njai, Cadet Superintendent Abubakar S. Jeng, Inspector R. Korea, IGP Pasa Lajany, AIG Ibrahim Chongan, ASP Jame Konta, Chief Superintendent Sirif Mbai, Superintendent Alundur, and Lieutenant Keba Diba, all arrested and detained in Mile 2 prisons.
Yes, sir. They were not all arrested and detained at the same time.
Yes, that is correct.
I think, and because I heard Sergeant Faraba Sabali, is that?
Sergeant Faraba Sabali, yes.
Yes, I don't believe that he was supposed to be a security detainee. I cannot recall what happened, but
well, he was gazetted as a security detainee.
Okay.
But in any case,
yes.
the point is that all these people were
yes.
arrested at different stages after the coup and detained at Mile 2 prison.
Yes, sir.
And some of them were in fact arrested on the first or second day of the coup. Those include RSM Jeng.
Yes, sir.
And the likes of Lieutenant Sirif Gomez was in fact detained on the very first day of the coup
yes.
and later transferred to Mile 2 prison.
Yes, sir.
You told us earlier that the purpose of this arrest was to secure these people temporarily.
Not most of them, because I'm not aware of the arrest of most of those people on the list. I was not part of those who arrested them.
It's one thing to be part of the party.
I am not trying to extricate myself. First. What I'm trying to say is that I was not aware.
First.
Okay, sir.
Hear the question first. It is one thing to be part of the party arresting them. It is another thing to be aware that these people have been arrested under the authority of the AFPRC, to which you are an important member.
Absolutely.
Good. So you would agree, as you mentioned earlier, that these people were arrested as a temporary measure in order to secure the coup d'etat.
When you say these people, not all of them, because if you were not arrested on that day itself, then you were not arrested to secure the coup d'etat. The coup d'etat finished once the government had been formed.
Precisely.
Sorry, sir?
I say precisely the point.
Yes.
But others were arrested on the suspicion that they were planning a coup d'etat.
Or
correct?
Security threats.
Or they were security threats.
Yes, sir.
All right. But you would agree with me that these people were detained for extended periods of time, correct?
Yes, I cannot recall the exact period, but yes, they were detained for extended periods of time, varying.
In fact, some of them were detained for over 2 years.
Yes, sir.
in terrible conditions at Mile 2 prisons.
Absolutely, sir.
In the security wing of Mile 2 prisons.
Yes, sir.
And it was quite obvious to all of the AFPRC council members that these officers were detained in inhumane conditions.
Well, they were detained in conditions that were available at the time.
Nonetheless, these conditions were inhumane.
Well, yes, of course. On hindsight, yes, they were inhumane.
No, but this cannot be on hindsight. This is as at the time of the detention, AFPRC were aware that these people were detained in horrible conditions.
Well, we were aware that they were detained. Well, put it this way. They were detained mostly by Sana Sabali.
No,
please.
We would not accept that, Mr. Singhateh. They were detained by the AFPRC, correct?
Please let me explain. If you don't allow me to talk, you would not understand.
Proceed, please.
Yes. So a lot of them, or some of them, were detained not on the order of or agreement of council in general. Some of them were picked from Yundum barracks, and Sana Sabali would later say, yes, he has arrested X, Y, Z. And I'll give you an example. And I would like you to go and verify this. There was a day Sana Sabali went to Yundum because all of the officers and soldiers that were not at State House were at Yundum. And what Sana Sabali would do would arrest and detain.
Mr. Singhateh, what I'm trying to drive at is that Mr. Sabali was not just arresting and detaining people for himself. He was doing it for and on behalf and in the name of the AFPRC, correct?
Well, sir, if you do not allow me to talk, you would not
understand. But you can answer the question yes, as to a yes or a no.
No,
but
please,
was he... okay, let's put it this way. There was an arrest. There was the detention of armed forces and police personnel decree. Was there not such a decree?
I believe there was.
And that decree must have been passed by the AFPRC.
It was.
Exactly. And that decree gave Sana Sabali the authority to detain people, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And therefore, whatever Sana Sabali did in pursuance of that decree was done for and on behalf of the AFPRC.
Absolutely, Counsel.
Okay,
I'm not disputing that. What I want to tell you...
But this is the point that I am making, Mr.
But what
Singhateh.
I want to tell you, too, is that some of these people were detained even before the decree was passed.
That is correct.
So obviously they were not detained pursuant to that decree on and behalf of everyone.
No,
but
that is not correct, Mr.
You see,
Sabali.
sir,
just hear me out. Just hear me out. Their detentions were gazetted, correct?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
But what is the date of the Gazette?
The Gazette came ex post facto. It came later. The Gazette came on 22nd August of 1994. So the Gazette pretty much validated the detentions that have been made by the AFPRC, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so therefore, the responsibility for those detentions would not fall on Sana Sabali alone, it would fall on the AFPRC, correct?
But sir, if you had allowed me to continue, you would have heard that I am not trying to put the detention on one person.
Okay, but let's just cut the chase.
You see, if you don't allow me to take responsibility, it will appear through this exchange that I am trying to extricate myself.
Okay, all right.
So if you don't hear me out, what the viewers will think is that Edward Singhateh is trying to take himself out of something that has happened.
We have to be fair to you.
For which he bears responsibility.
We have to be fair to you, Mr. Singhateh. I accept I have to give you ample opportunity to answer the question.
Exactly.
But at the same time, too, we do not have the luxury to be just going all over the place. If you just listen to my questions and you focus on answering the questions, I think we can cut through the chase very quickly. What I am trying to drive at, and perhaps that is what you are trying to say, is that the legislative and executive arrangements that you had in place at that time made the AFPRC responsible for all those arrests and detention of the security detainees. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the situation at the time, the condition of these detentions were horrible. And this was a known fact to the AFPRC, correct?
Absolutely.
And you all were aware that your colleagues, your seniors, most of them your seniors, were detained in inhumane conditions.
Absolutely.
And that it is in fact contrary to the UN standard minimum rules for the treatment of prisoners to detain anybody in such horrible conditions, irrespective of what their crime was.
Yes, absolutely. But allow me to explain now, if you would.
Please.
Okay. Now, firstly, what I was trying to explain or put across is that there are a number of detentions that occurred without prior consultation. Now, having said that, I fully own up to everything, especially with regards to the detainees.
In that regard, you accept responsibility for the unlawful...
Now you are interjecting. You either allow me to explain or you come and sit here and explain on my behalf, sir.
No.
I don't know which one is going to happen.
Mr. Singhateh, I have to run the proceedings. I have to be able to ask questions that I want to ask, where I think it's convenient to ask those questions. If I just give you that free rein, we would never finish. 3 years, we wouldn't finish. You'd just be going on and on and on.
I would not take 3 years.
Okay. All right, let's try to take just 2 days.
But what I do want to do...
Okay, explain yourself. I'm listening.
What I do want to do, and with all due respect to you and the time, as you told me, is that it's a fact-finding mission. You want to get to the truth. If you don't want to hear the facts, then just read out the adverse mentions and I'll say yes or no. But if you want an explanation and the background so that you can have an understanding of what happened, so that we can together as a nation heal, and the slogan, as it says, never again, through understanding of what happened, then fine. If it is going to be punitive, yes or no, did you do this, do you accept this, we can do that within 5 minutes, we will leave.
Mr. Singhateh, please, and with all due respect too, I cannot sit here and just give that free rein where we would have testimony that is unguided. That would be most unprofessional. You have your own set ideas as to what you want to say. We have your statement. I believe all the things you want to say are in the statement. The statement, in fact, would be put in evidence. So all those things you want to say would be in evidence. But also, please do understand that I have a responsibility to elicit particular facts from you, and that I would have to ask those questions. But if I do not interject now and again, we take a break now, you and I would have a conversation, and we would further discuss the rules. I am sure it would not be difficult for you and I to have a common agreement or understanding as to what we are going to do, and that way we would make good progress. Be rest assured that there is nothing that you would want to say that I would have the intention of trying to bury. That would be most unprofessional. But at the same time, too, be rest assured, I would not give you that free rein to just go into issues that are not necessarily helpful to this inquiry. So we would agree to, I would give you the opportunity to explain yourself, but if you digress onto issues that are not necessarily so helpful or within the parameters of what we are looking at, I will bring you back. So, and in that case, you have to accommodate my interjections. Sorry about that. Perhaps, Madam
yes,
Chair, we can
no,
end it now.
please, may I ask a crave your indulgence? I have, before we go to break, I have one question and a statement. First of all, let me make the statement. With regards to the detainees, and we will come to, to this, hopefully after the break. There are some people who should not have been there to begin with. Whatever happened with regards to their detention and the conditions were wrong. I accept my rule, and I deeply apologize for that.
Thank you.
Because you didn't allow me to come to where I wanted to get. But anyway, my question now is, because I will also apologize after we come, and I will mention certain names from the list and explain why they should not have been there. My question is to you after the statement is, once you ask a question or state a fact or an allegation, even though I would not take 3 years or go off topic, will you allow me to explain? This is what I want to know.
Where an explanation is required, obviously I would. So we agree on that.
When explanation is required, according to is it personally your judgment that on certain issues you wouldn't want an explanation and I should just say yes or no?
Mr. Singhateh, I am counsel. I ask the questions. You answer the questions. All right? You would be given an opportunity at the end of the day to make a statement.
Okay.
If you think that there are certain things that you need to say which have not been said, you can write to the commission and submit them further. But be rest assured that I would do my utmost to be as fair to you as possible. The only thing that I will guard jealously is the time. We cannot afford to be going into facts that are not necessarily central to the issues under inquiry.
I will not give you facts that are not essential. I will give you facts that will make your job easier and be beneficial for the information of the Gambian people. Thank you.
On that note, we can take a short break. Thank you.